For us, it's really about everyone understanding what their role is in energy efficiency at our facilities. So if you were to stop someone out in the plant and you asked how their job impacts energy performance, they could tell you.
This is the Energy Manager's Playbook from Save on Energy, a podcast empowering energy managers to find success at work. I'm your host, Jay Mullen, and today we're talking about shared ownership of energy performance. How do you, as an energy manager, make employees feel like saving energy is a part of their everyday jobs, rather than just another thing being put on their plate? That's no easy feat, especially at an operation like a cement plant, where day-to-day operations and upkeep of the machinery alone represents a mammoth task that dominates the time of people that work there. Today's guest found innovative ways to seamlessly incorporate energy management responsibilities into the existing duties and goals of plant staff.
It's also about having processes built into everything that we do so that nothing related to energy is perceived as being something extra.
Allison Watts is the corporate energy manager for Votorantim Cimentos, North America. How did you first step into the energy role in cement manufacturing?
So I had been working in energy management for 3 years. Originally, I was working for ClearResult, reviewing applications for incentives and other deliverables for the Save on Energy program. And I was approached by a recruiter who was looking to fill a role for an energy manager at St. Mary's Cement. They were looking for someone to fill that role and manage energy for both their Bowmanville plant and their St. Mary's plant. And I was very excited about the opportunity to take on that challenge.
Okay. And for people who may not be familiar with what a cement plant looks like, could you kind of describe what the operations are like or what some of those big energy users are?
Yeah, sure. So the way it was described to me when I was applying for the job is basically you take rock and you crush it, and then you put it in a kiln and bring it up to a really high temperature, 1500 degrees Celsius, and then you crush it again. But at most of our sites, we have a quarry, and so we're blasting, and then we're taking that rock to a crusher. It's going through a few stages of crushing, and then it does go into the kiln where it turns into clinker, which is an intermediary kind of product. The clinker is then crushed with other materials, and the final product after that is a gray dust, which is cement. And the major energy users are the raw mill, which is the crushing right before the kiln. It's a very large piece of equipment. The kiln is also a large user, and then the finish mills where the final crushing is done.
Okay. And when you were starting to look at Bowmanville and St. Mary's sites at the energy saving opportunities, what stood out most?
So, yeah, there was a lot of opportunity. There was a lot of work that was being done. I think we had maybe 10 or 15 projects in the retrofit program at various stages as well. So there were a lot of things to juggle. There were some projects that had potential at the plants, but that had never been able to be approved because of economics. And so those were higher priority for me to be able to see if we could get incentives for them. So that was one of the things that I was paying a lot of attention to. And then also focusing on moving our retrofit projects through so that we could get those incentives as well. So on top of all of the incentive projects that we were working on, I was also focusing attention on the non-incentive projects that had the highest energy savings.
And what did those types of projects look like just as an example?
Yeah, so we had some lighting retrofits that we were doing that had not been qualified under the retrofit program. So we were keeping track of all of the LED lighting upgrades that we were doing at the plant. We also had replaced some baghouse filters. It was a new type that basically had a lower pressure drop, so it was going to save energy, and compressed air leak repairs at both of our plants.
With all of that going on, all of those projects underway and finding those new opportunities, those operational improvements, was there a point where it was starting to be a challenge to keep pace with everything? Like that sounds like a very long list of projects to stay on top of.
Yeah, after about a year with the company, I started to realize that we could more fully leverage our energy teams. We had a really good first year. We maxed out our energy manager funding. We got the Energy Manager of the Year award. We had 3 IEP applications that were approved. And then we had other funding applications that were moving through. So it was a really good year. But at the same time, it felt like there were so many other things that we could be doing. I felt like we were doing so much great work at these 2 plants, and we could be doing more at our other cement plants. Like we've got 2 cement plants in Michigan and 1 in Quebec. And so the vision that I had was we can be doing this everywhere, but if we're going to do it, we need to create a model where energy management is built into what everyone's doing, and everyone needs to be contributing, and it can't just be one person's job.
And when you brought that idea forward, how did leadership or management react or help shape that idea?
I had initially discussed it with my manager at about maybe a year and a half after I'd been with the company. And he shared that, that topic had actually been brought up before in the past, but it didn't go anywhere. I think that they had a hard time figuring out exactly where that role would fall in corporate and who they would report to. So after I'd been with the company for about a year and a half, there was a restructuring in the sustainability team. And as part of that restructuring, they had hired on a senior manager of sustainability and decarbonization. And actually, as it turns out, energy efficiency is one of our levers in cement for decarbonization. So it made a lot of sense for me to be working with her. So she was able to basically talk to her manager and have me moved into the sustainability team to work with her.
And when you started making that transition from the plant energy manager into that more corporate role, how did you make sure that everyone stayed aligned to keep these energy projects moving forward?
One of the components that was part of our model for the energy teams was a guideline document that we provided to them. And so within that basically was all of the information that the teams needed to get started. A key component of that was the annual energy review process, where every year they look back on the previous year's performance and then review their project list and prioritize actions for the year. And so this helps to keep them focused during the year on the most important things. And then if more things get added to the list, that's great. But we just want to make sure that every year we're kind of refocusing our attention so that people don't get burned out.
A lot of times when these targets, these tasks get put on energy teams or in organizations, it often seems as like a separate thing that they have to do. Was there any effort or did you do anything to help them see that this could be integrated into their existing priorities or their existing processes?
I think one of the things that has been the most helpful in making energy projects a priority is tying them to other KPIs at the plant. So, for example, at our St. Mary's plant, we've actually been tracking more closely, not only on the overall plant performance, but then digging into our significant energy users. So the specific energy use of our raw mill and of the kiln system and of the finish mills. And so in that way, we can monitor how those areas are operating over time and potentially identify when something's going on that might be making them perform less efficiently.
And having the energy teams looking at those more detailed metrics, do you have any examples of things that they maybe uncovered as a result of that?
So at the St. Mary's plant, we review our energy KPIs on a weekly basis. And through those meetings, we had discovered that our finish mills were operating less efficiently than what they usually do. And what happened was when maintenance went in and looked at the equipment, they found that there was a really important piece that was missing that was not allowing the material to flow through the way that it should. And so it was recirculating and not exiting. When your material is recirculating and it's not exiting the mill when it should, that means that the actual output of that equipment is less than what it should be. So by fixing this issue, we were also able to become more productive in the finish mill.
And you mentioned other plants. So after those 2 main Ontario sites that you have been working closely with, what were the other ones that stepped forward to sort of, take those first steps in adopting the framework, and how did those local teams organize?
So the Charlevoix plant that's in northern Michigan was the next plant to get an energy team after St. Mary's in Bowmanville. And actually, I had connected with the plant manager about having them share an energy topic that I had created and that we were sharing at Bowmanville and St. Mary's. And while we were talking, he actually volunteered that they should be restarting their energy team. They'd had one in the past, but it hadn't been there for a while. And so it was really great that he was leading that idea of starting the team. And within a couple months, we were able to select the members for that team and kick that team off.
And you said that, this is about a year into that transition. So what have you seen in terms of results that you and those plant teams have achieved?
So a big goal of ours in this transition was definitely setting up those energy teams at our other plants. And as I mentioned, we have formed the team at the Charlevoix plant and they're up and running. We also kicked off our team in Detroit a couple weeks ago, and we're going to be talking with our plant in Quebec very soon. So we're making progress on that side. Our Charlevoix, Bowmanville, and St. Mary's plant did their energy review this year, and they've selected projects to do. There's 14 projects in total between the three plants, which I think is really great considering we had asked them to do a minimum of 3 each. And we're also starting to talk to our aggregates and ready mix divisions. And so that's really exciting.
And those are smaller plants than those main ones that we've been talking about?
Yeah, so aggregate sites, basically they're mines where we're grabbing material and crushing it and sorting it into different sizes, and then it goes to the ready mix plants. And then they also receive the cement. So they mix together aggregate, cement, and water, and that makes concrete.
What sort of actions are they taking to plug into or access this framework that you've developed at the large cement plants?
So we're still very early in our communications with them, but what we're doing right now is we're helping them to build their decarbonization roadmap to 2030. And so this is really going to kind of set the stage for what we do next once we figure out what those actions are. And I did visit a sample of sites, and I can say that they're already doing a lot of great work, but I'm sure we'll find lots of other things that we can do.
And as part of this, is there anything being done in terms of employee engagement, the broader staff at the facilities?
Yeah, so engagement is actually a really big piece of our framework for our energy teams. So the one side is identifying and implementing energy projects, but the other side is engagement. And so we think that it's really important for all of our staff to be involved in energy management and for everyone to understand how their role can impact energy use at the plant. And so one of the things that we do for that is I release energy topics throughout the year. It's meant to be an educational tool that gets people thinking about how this might relate to what they're doing in their job. And so we do ask the teams to help in disseminating that information to all of the plant staff.
This is still early in that transition. You say you're still getting some of those plants on board. Looking 3 to 5 years ahead, what does success of this collaborative model look like to you?
So for us, it's really about everyone understanding what their role is in energy efficiency at our facilities. So if you were to stop someone out in the plant and you asked how their job impacts energy performance, they could tell you. It's also about having processes built into everything that we do so that nothing related to energy is perceived as being something extra.
And what personally keeps you motivated as this framework continues to grow?
When I decided to go into engineering and when I switched into energy management, the thing that's always been most important to me is to be able to make an impact. I'm passionate about climate change, and so being in an industry where I can make an impact on that really keeps me motivated.
Many organizations think that having a dedicated energy manager is a silver bullet to achieving their energy management goals. Having someone who can take all of those energy management responsibilities off the plates of staff who are busy with their usual jobs. And don't get me wrong, that can be extremely helpful. But sometimes it can also be a bit of a trap if it results in staff viewing energy as someone else's responsibility. Allison saw the potential in shared ownership of energy management, finding ways to align energy savings with existing priorities and getting people to think about energy as part of their job. And by doing so, she managed to find opportunities that simultaneously save energy and boost plant efficiency. Allison has been able to smooth out that transition by creating enduring processes for plant-level managers to follow, providing them a roadmap for success even after she's moved on from her role. And encouragingly, it seems as though the enthusiasm for energy management is coming from the ground up, with plant-level staff approaching her with interest in establishing new programs. That's a great sign that energy management is becoming embedded in your culture. And at the end of the day, that sort of broad buy-in can deliver greater results than one dedicated energy manager. Thanks so much to Allison and Votorantim Cimentos North America. That's a wrap for Season 1. Thank you so much for listening. We've loved sharing these stories and insights with you, and we're already thinking ahead to what's next. We'd love to hear from you. What topics would you like to explore in future episodes? Any guests or stories you'd want us to feature? Let us know what resonated. Drop us a comment, email, or review. Your feedback will help shape what comes next. Until next time, keep learning, stay curious, and thank you for being part of this journey. I'm Jay Mullen, and this has been the Energy Manager's Playbook, a podcast from Save on Energy.